years ago, and now it's a reality, and it's just spectacular. But I want to say that library associations are, like the world, experiencing a shift. And we are increasingly monitoring societal trends that are used to forecast our future, but also our present, to find and identify ways to help libraries and librarians to develop strategies to enhance humanity's potential. And that's where we are. My experience comes from 21 years in serving in different boards and libraries, the American Library Association, the IFLA governing board in various sections, 25 years in librarianship, but also 10 years advocating for libraries at the United Nations. And now currently as chair of IFLA management of library associations, I get to work with library associations around the world. And although I will say that, yes, we have to continuously be very aware of presenting how libraries are serving communities, I have increasingly noticed that we are definitely more attuned to societal trends. And this is very important because I just want to mention a couple of points. We are using this to then enhance our strategies in the areas of advocacy and policy leadership, professional development. We're encouraging newer leaders, and also technological access, which is so important. And so those are areas that we library associations, want to encourage our members to develop further. And in that area, for instance, I have examples from different library associations around the world. They are in California, for instance, they are conducting discussions with Silicon Valley, with technological entrepreneurs. There are libraries in Austin, in Texas, that are working very closely with the presenters of South by Southwest, all these billionaires and entrepreneurs. And this is happening. And I would like to see more of that. We are not there yet, but I see that is happening. There is a shift, and that is so, so positive, because it speaks to the work that library associations are doing to move forward strategies that will support communities, entrepreneurs, sustainability, and the technological change that is happening.
Sharon, have you noticed the same societal shift, the shifts that are happening, and how have you adapted as IFLA to respond to those?
So I'll come back to your first question, which is, are we relevant still? The answer is absolutely yes, and we are, and we will be relevant as long as libraries are relevant, and as long as the world needs access to trusted information, knowledge, literacy, safe spaces, all of the incredible things that libraries do, we will be relevant. So I think the relevance question is an important one. That doesn't mean we can be complacent. We always have to adapt. And I often say that, and I'll use a phrase to test the interpreters, but that libraries are often the canaries in the coal mine. They are the organizations that are closest to the communities that they serve and spot the societal changes and respond to them. So libraries themselves are full of, and as Louis was saying, it is one of the most trusted professions. Of course things are changing, but that trust remains there. And even in challenging circumstances, libraries and librarians are incredibly skilled at navigating complex situations and relationships, which means that they are still a source of knowledge. So yes, society is changing, there are different needs, and we adapt and respond because that's what libraries do best. One of the challenges I found when you talk to politicians is that they say, oh yes, we love libraries, but they have a memory of libraries only of when they were a child. And so they think of it as something that you go in and you get a couple of nice books, and you get a stamp in it, and then if you're not late, you don't get fined. But libraries now are doing so much more. They are, and I know Masood, if he's here, he talks about this idea of, and we always talk about libraries being a gateway to knowledge, to information, to a sustainable future. It's not just bricks, however beautiful the bricks are. It is actually the possibility, the doorway, the access that can provide. And as I say, I think that libraries are incredibly adaptable, they change, and so the relevance is there. And obviously for an organization, I'm sure we'll be talking about this afterwards, we have that global relevance, if you like, and where it's slightly different to the focus of a national association. We are the sort of meta, if you like, of associations. And part of what we have to do is to recognize the diversity, the different challenges, and ensure that we are relevant wherever, whether it is a village library in the slums outside of Nairobi or the Library of Congress in Washington. So it's a very different world in which we're operating.
So you're responding to change, but how much are you driving change? I mean, how, Louis, are you finding with your members that you're working for them to drive change within as well as driving change without, as well as responding to it?
Yeah, it's a two-way process. So yes, we are relevant. Yeah, so it's a two-way process. So I would say we are relevant. We have to be relevant. Society needs us to be relevant. And partly that runs kind of up and down from the village through to the Library of Congress. But also there's something about community. So we're associations. We're stronger together. We associate. And that means that we learn from each other. And we pass information kind of up that chain, all the way up to IFLA, to the UN, to the Library of Congress. But we also take information and knowledge from that higher level and pass it down through our networks. So that whatever level we're operating at, and as individuals we can operate at different levels in different times, the association needs to be there to help equip you to be more effective, so that you can advocate, so that you can find like-minded people, so you can find people you disagree with. But whatever the issue is, whether it's AI or funding or whatever it is, the association's role is to be relevant to you, to equip you with the tools to do your job better.
When I was thinking about this, I was reminded of a quote, that JFK quote, ask not what your library association can do for you, but what you can do for it. And I wonder how important it is as a member to be active and participatory in what happens, and how much your membership is driving your change, and what they can do to be able to help that. Perhaps you could talk a bit about where should we start? Sharon, should we?
Yeah, sure. So obviously for IFLA, our members are hugely important. We have 1,700 members, but an association member, for example, will have within their association hundreds and thousands of members. So in a sense, we're reaching very many. We have 1,100 volunteers. We have a small staff, but we have about 1,100 volunteers who give their time and energy. And without those volunteers, we wouldn't be IFLA, because they are the people who are setting the global standards, the professional standards. They are creating that is the platform. What we do is facilitate that. And I think that's something that's very particular about IFLA, is that we have that global reach. And therefore our committees, our volunteers come from every part of the world. We provide the platform, we support it to allow for international collaboration. and our members absolutely shape what we are doing. So our governing board, for example, which is the governing board of the association, and Loida sits on it at the moment, but that is made up of our members. So clearly that shaping is coming and we're being driven. I mean, to say that we do shape as well, because what we can do also, I think, is support that kind of systemic change. And that's a really important point of I think, associations. You know, we are there at the UN. We have official observer status. We are that collective global voice of libraries. So we are shaping the voluntary national reviews. We are shaping the post-2030 agenda. We are campaigning for culture to be a specific goal. We are making statements around the protection of cultural heritage, around internet governance, whatever, and we have the status and standing of the global organization. We work with partners to do it, and that can help change. And that is coming as well as a response from our members too. So it's a two-way process. If we tried to develop in a way that wasn't relevant to our members, we wouldn't be relevant.
Absolutely, Sharon, and I'm so glad that you get us started right with this thinking. From what I see, working with library associations in different regions of the world, it's just you can actually have a view of what is happening on the ground in different libraries, and that's what I would like to share with our colleagues here today and with you. For instance, our members are driving our actions, right? Our strategic planning and everything that we do. We have librarians, as I mentioned earlier, that are in California. So what we have there, Silicon Valley. So we meet with them. And how can we partner with these tech entrepreneurs? We have librarians that live in Austin. And what is happening there with South by Southwest? And we are partnering with them, bringing library events to this worldwide festival. But we also have things that are happening in other parts of the world. And now it's a little bit totally different from tech, but still responding to members and the communities that drive our line of action. For instance, we have libraries in the Pacific, in Fiji. They experience typhoons and hurricanes and different type of things, right? Natural disasters. They have now, the Library Association has been supporting bookmobiles. So it's a total different shift, right, from what I mentioned earlier. But these bookmobiles are going to communities, and they are allowing people to keep their businesses open because they can use the computers to continue communication. But they also allow kids to continue learning to read, so the literacy aspect is not disrupted. We have library associations like the Lebanon Library Association, where you have, if you will, man-made disasters, right? But they are collaborating with different agencies, with other library associations and other organizations, so that, for instance, one example is that power. They can bring power through a collaboration in solar panels for libraries to continue operating, and in some cases, the immediate communities are also, benefit from these actions. So there is a different kind of way in which library associations are impacting our world and our communities. And this could be an academic community, could be, university, or it could be your community at large when it's a neighborhood of public libraries, or the school library. So that is your community will be the students and the faculty. And so there are different areas in their community, and library associations are increasingly being shaped in terms of the actions and the strategy, the partnerships, through what is happening in the world and in their immediate vicinity. And this is a local level, national level, but it definitely impacts our world at a global stage, so that this social cohesion that we have and that we allow us to enjoy the world as we know it continues. And I'm convinced that library associations are key in that area.
It sounds like, I mean, it's a huge job that you're doing because librarianship is such a huge profession. We do so much and in so many different ways about information. And I think allowing us to be disruptors, agents for change is an important part of what that is, because I think we're all quite good as librarians at sitting. We're perhaps not so good at speaking out for ourselves. We're disruptive within our own environment. Perhaps it's a little bit more difficult for us to be loud about our disruptive capabilities. And library associations have that louder voice to amplify what the messages that we're seeing and trying to get across. How working together, I mean, IFLA, we've got IFLA, CILIP, ALA here, very different governance structures, but you obviously, your partnerships with each other are very important. Louis, would you want to talk a little bit about how the international reach of what you do is important?
Sure. So yeah, I think we are learning how to work together more and work internationally on some issues and to learn from each other. A lot of the challenges and the opportunities are similar. So that kind of knowledge sharing between different levels, I think, is quite important. And just going back to your last question in terms of what you can do for your library association, you can associate with it. You can join it. So you can join your national association. I think all three of us have different versions of membership for either organizations or individuals as well. So if you want to join that more international conversation, there's an association for you. But yeah, I think knowing when to work together, when to work in partnership, knowing when to speak outside your community, so understanding what level are you trying to influence at. If it's a very local level, then your local association should be able to help with that. Similarly, if it's national, but a lot of these issues are international. A lot of the regulations and rules, a lot of the issues are international. So working through the system to operate at an international level all the way up to the UN, I think is really important. So yes, what can you do? You can join in, you can give up some of your time, you can be demanding, you can be a bit patient maybe, but yeah, get involved.
What challenges are you facing at the moment? I mean, there's lots of great things that you're doing, but are there some significant challenges that you're working to overcome?
There are always challenges, and you have challenges, if you like, at the geopolitical level. We are living in a very uncertain world at the moment, and the importance of an organization like IFLA, which perhaps is slightly different to the national associations, is that a fundamental principle is that all librarians are welcome and that we do not hold librarians accountable, responsible for the actions of their government, which means that Ukrainian librarians are as welcome as Russian librarians. Israeli librarians have to be as welcome as Palestinian librarians. And we operate in every country. We are in 150 countries. So for that reason, it is extremely important. We, of course, have our core values, but we are, if you like, more like, we take a UN approach to it. And it is just as, I'm British, and I hope that nobody holds me responsible for Brexit or the actions of my government. That's not whatever my beliefs might be. I operate in a professional way, and that's how we have to operate. So a challenge is, one, being welcoming and relevant. A challenge, I think, as well for us is ensuring that we have the concept of equitable partnerships, which for me is an important one. It's something which is common in university and research, but the fact is that we do have libraries and members in countries where they are blessed with many resources, in others where they are not. And we each should have an absolutely equal voice at the table. So that's an incredibly important principle of partnerships being equitable, of all being welcome, all having an equal voice. And that, if you like, is that challenge. We have, like every organization and every association, ensuring we are relevant, ensuring that we are financially sustainable so that we can go safely and comfortably into the future. But I would say that those are the main things. And I guess it's the capacity, because there is so much we could do that we don't have the resources to do, which is why for us partnerships, and that's not always financial partnerships, that is partnerships where we are all bringing something different to the table to achieve a common objective. And that, again, is the power, I think, of an organization like IFLA, where we can aggregate, if you like, those voices to be much more powerful, go to the UN, and not just as IFLA, but we go with our sister organizations, we go with other voices and other partners. We're creating an ambassadors group at the UN, sort of Friends of Libraries. There are things like that where we work together through others, with others, to achieve common goals. And therefore, how we do those partnerships in an equitable way and how we build that capacity in the field, I think is one of the big challenges that we have.
Are you finding the same sort of thing, Louis, that's similar challenges?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the challenges that we face as a profession and associations, they reflect the wider challenges in society. And I think the profession has an important place to play in helping society meet those challenges. So whether it's sustainability, as Lloyda mentioned, or anything else around inclusion or financial challenges, technology, you know, societies need us as a profession to be there, firing on all cylinders, being our best. So that kind of capacity building and that community building function of associations, I think, is really, really important. So we need to be providing training to upskill you, helping you progress in your careers, connecting you with other people, both within your own context and perhaps internationally. So I think associations are a way of evolving and enabling this profession to be at its best and to help society meet some of those challenges.
Yes, and I wanted to add that I want to echo that we do face and we also experience these man-made or natural disasters that are, covering the land. But for instance, there are times when we have a pandemic, for instance, and library associations unite, and we actually work in such a way that we are successful in, for instance, getting the copyright and legal matters that are so important to power research, power innovation, to bring, vaccines or other medical health advancement into humanity. We are able to make that happen because, for instance, there are nuances, right? When pandemic happens, how we access information, and information is at the core of what we do, right? It's our business information. And so happens the pandemic, library associations unite forces with local agencies, with global bodies, and then we are successful in securing access through databases or other materials that require copyright. And that is so vital, key to continue moving humanity forward. And so we do have challenges, as we mentioned, and we are not going to diminish the effect, but there are also opportunities to grow and to really assert our power in terms of what we can achieve working together. And so that is an example I wanted to present because it's still, many countries are still coming out from the pandemic. The United Nations have said that the development that was happening, the sustainability advancement was turned back several years after that. And so it's still important to remember, and I want to emphasize, the power of the associations when we're working together, not only among us, but with international bodies and with other not-for-profit organizations.
Just as an example of that, I know in the UK that the association, we worked very closely with all the public libraries, where it became very quickly during the pandemic a kind of on-the-ground delivery arm of government, getting trusted information out, helping people on the ground. So yeah, that was a really great example of how the association and the sector, just in one country, kind of responded to the challenge and met societal need in very short timescales.
Yeah, that social justice element and that being able to respond immediately is really crucial, I think, isn't it?
I mean, I think it's essential, and libraries, I think, have been exemplary, because libraries themselves they provide an essential service, but they are that safe space. It's that ready-made infrastructure which can really help deliver. And so, you know, what both Louis and Lloyda were saying, it is, you know, they are the heart of many communities and societies, and we shouldn't lose sight of that. Because many people, whereas they won't go into a hospital for information, a government department, into many places, they feel quite safe about going into a library. And that's something I think that we can use, and it's certainly part of the work that we're trying to do at IFLA, is look at some of those policy areas and how libraries can be better recognized for the work that they are doing, but also getting out those kind of systemic ideas. And part of what we are trying to do as an organization, and it's certainly one of my priorities, is to get, I suppose, equip librarians better. Some of them are already really good, but equip them better with the language, the framework, the skills and the tools to go and have those conversations, and to talk about libraries in a language. And that's actually where the SDGs are incredibly useful, but to talk about libraries in a language which has meaning for governments, universities, business, etc. And, you know, one of the things with our new strategy that we've just launched, which I have one copy of here, but our vision is sustainable futures for all through knowledge and information. And it's very much about focusing on what the difference we can make. But note that we didn't use the word libraries in the vision, because it is about knowledge and information for all, and it's linked very much with sustainability. And a lot of this also, I think, the way we've created a results framework, the indicators, is to help give people who want to be inspired by it to use it as a tool to build a roadmap for change and build that roadmap for sustainable futures. It's on the website, translated into lots of different languages, and worth a read.
It definitely is worth a read, and I'm really interested about pushing things forward and changing. We don't have very long left, so can I ask you all if you have questions to think about them, and then I'm just going to ask our speakers to just sum up for me, if you will, what library associations, I mean, we just answered the question, what can library associations do for you? Which bit is most important? And then we'll open the floor to some questions in the last 5 minutes, if that's okay.
I'm happy to go. I would like us to leave here thinking about two things. One is that library associations are shifting with the world. We are responding to societal needs. We are focused on what you are also focused on, sustainability, entrepreneurship, communities, technology advancement. And second is that we are active in different levels, different bodies, at local levels and at global levels. And they are all to work towards the betterment and to the advancement of humans potential. And human's potential is that we want lifelong learning, better education for everyone, everywhere.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think getting beyond the library, I think, is really important. It is one of the functions of an association is to give you that community, that local community, that special interest you have, whatever that is, but also helping you to know when to look beyond the library sector. And it's not just about libraries, it's about what libraries do for people, what do they do for society, and how you use that language and how you talk about how you help wider society. So I think, what do we do for you? We help you to grow your impact and to speak to others outside of the library sector about all the amazing things that you do.
We, I think, are the international platform. So if you want to collaborate across the world, of course there are other ways of doing it, but we have this ready-made infrastructure and approach, which means that you can communicate, work with, collaborate, learn from, show and tell, everything across the world. I think the other thing that we can do is, because we are that global voice of libraries, we can aggregate and we can get that voice to be really loud. My test, and I've just had that experience at a meeting at the European Commission in Brussels, talking to a senior official where we had great difficulty getting a meeting because they were saying, libraries? What on earth do we have with libraries? And at the end of the meeting, he was saying, wow, I just didn't know. I had no idea. I'd not thought about libraries like that. And that is my test. And we've now got follow-up meetings and other connections. So how do we get the tools and how do we help you and all of our members have that same experience of going to people who haven't thought about libraries in the way that they now are? And that is the way for really to amplify our voices. And I think IFLA's role is voice amplification, if you like, international collaboration, and I would say international friendship. And that is a critical part. I came into IFLA and everybody said, oh, I've known this person for 20 years, for 30 years, and lifelong friendships. And do not dismiss friendship. It is an extraordinary gift.
Wonderful. Thank you. We've got just under 5 minutes. If anyone would like to ask a question, would you raise your hand? I think there'll be a microphone going around. If anyone has anything to...
Saif is there. Has a question.
Yeah. Here we are, just... Thank you.
Thank you for all the panelists. An interesting subject that we always, in library science, in library field and library association, discuss and like to hear the new thoughts about it. Working with library associations in the MENA region, I think that we had lots of difficulties within these library associations, despite the fact that in different countries, professionals are striving to make these associations active and involved. How can IFLA, and this is for Sharon and Yoda, how can IFLA help more in to give these library associations more power and more thoughts for doing their roles, actually, because we have difficulties in making some in running these library association, we have difficulties in continuous membership to IFLA. We have difficulties in trying to well establish the professional within the country, working with legislator to make some to build some rules that will defend library and the library professions in these countries.
Right. Let me think about sort of library associations. I'm sure that both Louis and Loida will have comments, in particular as Loida sits on the MLAS, chairs, not just sits on, chairs the MLAS committee, which is for library associations. Take it a step back on associations and how we empower them. IFLA is the International Federation for Library Associations, and then we've sort of added institutions and individuals later. So associations are at the heart of what we do, and that's been one of my priorities since I joined, was to look at ways of creating stronger ties with the associations, but also looking at the capacity building. So there are two elements that I would talk about, because we need to have different touch points, and associations are different in different countries. And so we just set up, for example, and Louis is a member, something called a CEO Circle, which is a group, unofficial, it's not part of the governance structure, but it is a bit of a sounding board for all of us of associations where you've got if you like, an employee who is, we're paid, Louis and I are paid to be the CEO or Secretary General of an association. And we had our first meeting last week. So we're looking at ways not only how we help ourselves, but in parallel, we're also looking at a program that IFLA developed before, which is about building stronger library associations. And we're doing a review of that. We want to strengthen it. And we're trying to look in different ways. And I was talking with the national directors, the national library directors this morning. And in some countries, it's often the national libraries that have that function of association. So what we're trying to assess at the moment is what's the current state of associations across the world? How can we help then strengthen them and give them that function? Or how can we work with the right body if it is the National Library, or whether the two work together? So I know that in the UK, whilst you're separate, you're in the same building as the British Library. And I think that what we want to do, we're just beginning on this, and I think Saif would be really helpful to get your input. We may also do a president's circle, but we're just thinking about doing that at the moment. And it's how can we at IFLA help and support library associations in an appropriate way for the context and given the resources. So it will be about tools, it will be about building. And you've also got the formal governance structure with MLAS that Loida chairs, which is also doing really good work at all levels. So there's part of the governance, the professional networking, which produces reports, research documents. We're having a kind of almost informal networking, and we're looking at different ways. We're trying to get a network as well, a community of practice of communicators. And these are some of the things that we are trying to do to help strengthen library associations, because our view is that a strong library association or a national library that has that function is an incredibly valuable resource, both in, if you like, aggregating. You can see what ALA and SILIP are doing, aggregating and amplifying the voice of libraries, and also raising standards, partnering, all of these things. So we would very much like to look at ways of strengthening library associations across the world, and we would really welcome your thoughts and views and support and ideas for that.
Yes, and first I want to say that I'm so glad to see Dr. Saif here. We have collaborated many years in different settings, library settings. The management of library associations section of IFLA works very harmoniously with the rest of IFLA, all the different sections and the governing board. And for instance, this year, we have Building Strong Library Associations initiative. And it just goes, I think it goes very harmoniously with the Building Strong Library Associations overall initiative from IFLA that started many years ago. Now is being looked at again because, you know, life and everything happens, and this is part of the natural cycle of things. And so I think that those will strengthen the associations. For instance, the initiative we're following currently at the section level includes events with different library associations around the world to help strengthen their position where they are. We had a really wonderful collaboration with the Lebanese Library Association. We presented their annual library conference together, and the theme was digital preservation in terms of cultural heritage, which is so important given the timely development that we're experiencing in the region. That's one thing. So that's one aspect, events and collaboration with library associations. The second one has to do with online events, and the third is mentoring. And we are focusing on 5 priorities, and those are really the needs of the library associations and how to tackle those. We need more conversations, we need more forums like this, and I'm so glad that we can have this space because then we can follow up and meet to really find out what is the best and most effective way of supporting the library associations in this region.
Thank you. We could talk forever. I think I'm being signalled that we've got to move on because there's so many more things to talk about. But I hope that what you've got from this is that, or certainly what I've got from it, is that the partnerships and the friendships that are being formed here and elsewhere are things that we need to continue with. And librarians, we all have a responsibility to make the world that we're living in a better place, and joining our associations at any level is what's really important to be able to make those changes. So thank you both, all three of you, very much indeed for your insight on this discussion. It's been really interesting. Thank you very much.
حيث يجتمع الماضي والحاضر والمستقبل. دبي موئل الثقافات وحاضنة الإبداع، تحتضن بين أركانها مزيجا فريدا من الثقافات والتقاليد، حيث يلتقي التراث العريق مع الفكر الحديث. على مر العصور كانت دبي مركزا للحوار الحضاري وبيئة مثالية لتلاقي العقول والأفكار من مختلف أرجاء العالم، ساعية دوما لتعزيز ثقافة المعرفة والانفتاح. وهنا اليوم في قلب دبي حيث يبنى المستقبل. في هذا الصرح الثقافي مكتبة محمد